Good evening, and welcome to the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission meeting of Monday, February 23rd. Item number 1 on the agenda.
Item 1, regular business agenda. Item 1A, roll call. Commissioner Merabian,
Yes.
Commissioner Sulayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Here.
Commissioner Welch,
Here.
Chairperson Sahakian.
Present. Next item, please.
Item 1B, flag salute. Chairperson
Please rise.
Sahakian.
Put your right hand over your heart and recite with me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2, posting of agenda. The agenda for the Monday, February 23rd, 2009 regular meeting of the Glendale Transportation and Parking Commission was posted by Friday, February 20th, 2009, before 5:30 p.m. on the bulletin board outside of City Hall.
Item number 3.
Item 3, approval of minutes. Item 3A, December 15th, 2008 special meeting, approval of minutes.
Commissioners, any comments on the minutes? No. Okay. I get a motion to approve first.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Approved as written. Item number 4.
Item 4, oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision.
Thank you. For oral communication, I have one card. And at this time, I'm going to open oral communication and invite Ms. Stephanie Kindleberger.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Kindleberger. I live at 1021 North Howard Street. I've been there for 34 years. We have an ongoing and escalating problem of oversized delivery trucks trying to deliver to the businesses on the southwest corner of Glen Oaks and North Howard Street. It's a strip mall, is what it is. These oversized trucks turn on North Howard Street going north, make a U-turn on Dryden, and come back down North Howard Street to park in the red zone because they have to deliver their goods. The red zone is on North Howard Street at the corner of Glen Oaks. Sometimes there's competition for this red zone. It's the only place they apparently can park. And they circle our streets between Isabel, Howard. They circle and circle until they can park. Sometimes I've seen them double parking on Glen Oaks. There is no sign on our street prohibiting these oversized delivery trucks that can reach up to 40, 50 feet long. They're huge. They scare us, and we live on the street. In comparison, Geneva, which is 1 block east, is 12 feet wider. They have a sign posted on their street at Glen Oaks. They also have traffic calming with speed humps. The trucks are never on that street, ever. They come on Howard and they come on Isabel because we don't have any sign posted. We don't have any traffic calming measures. And there's no deterrent for them to drive our streets. And they circle and circle and circle. We need help keeping these oversized delivery trucks on Glen Oaks, not Howard Street, where it's zone commercial on Glen Oaks. That's my speech. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. If you can stay at the podium. Any questions, Commissioners?
Quick question. Ms.
Hello.
Stephanie?
Ms. Kindleberger, one question.
Yes.
Is your main issue about the truck or also speeding that goes on Howard?
There is speeding.
Because you were asking for
There is
trucks.
speeding, but we have to pick our battles. There's both. There's both. Because we are the only 2 streets in the entire neighborhood that has no traffic calming, even our neighbors use our streets with no slowing down. They have to get to Glen Oaks. We're the first block of North Howard Street after crossing Glen Oaks. So the second two streets of North Howard Street are not impacted whatsoever with speeders or trucks.
Is this on daily basis, the truck, or is it once a week? Is it on daily
The trucks,
basis?
you know, I can't figure them out. Normally it's on a Monday, but it's not every day. And it's hard to keep track of when they actually do come. Sometimes it's like 10 of them within a day, and then we don't see them for 2 or 3 days. So it's very difficult to keep track. But Monday is a good day for them.
And I'm just curious, what kind of delivery trucks are? Is it for that little market on that corner?
Yes, there's 5 businesses in that strip mall, and they all have to have deliveries. We're not disputing that whatsoever. We just need those trucks to stay on Glen Oaks, where it's commercial. So,
One other
Thank you.
question from
Yes.
me. You said they use Howard Street, proceed northbound, make a U-turn, come back southbound, and park.
yes,
The reason for that is so they're on the right side of the street where the red curb is?
I assume. Yes, I assume that's what they're doing. They have to park. They have to stop their vehicles and get out and deliver. So we have a red zone on Howard Street, right at Glen Oaks, and that's where they've chosen to park.
And which corner would this be? Northwest corner?
It's the southwest
Southwest
of
corner.
Howard, at Glen Oaks.
Any questions?
Where is your address? Where you live?
I live 2 blocks from Dryden, so we get them as they're coming down and turning around, coming right back up. Yeah.
She's on Howard.
Mr. Chairman, we'll take her phone number and we will contact and see if we can post no large truck signs so that will limit trucks entering Harvard. We can talk with our community development services to see if we can limit the deliveries to the businesses there. So we'll see if we can help them out.
Okay. One other thing we might want to look into is if there's any loading zones on Glen Oaks that the businesses can use. But they got to park somewhere to deliver.
Yeah, we'll check in so it doesn't impact the businesses, but also at the same time does not impact the residents. We'll check into it.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
I don't have any other cards for oral communication, so I'm going to close item number 4 at this time, and we're going to move on to item number 5.
Item 5, action items. Item 5A, report on proposed preferential parking for the 600 block of Columbus Avenue between Maple Street and Riverdale Drive. 5A1, resolution approving the establishment of a no parking except by permit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week except holidays preferential parking restriction on the 600 block of Columbus Avenue between Maple Street and Riverdale Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Bagdania.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I have, you have a preferential parking request for Columbus Street for preferential parking between Maple Street and Riverdale Drive. Essentially, the problem here is that there is people that are parking from Bally's Total Fitness. These are customers. They park on Maple Street. Maple Street already has preferential parking, and some of the residents from Maple park on Columbus Street. As a result, the on-street parking is limited on Columbus Street. We've done the preferential parking process on this. The residents have filed a petition. It meets the requirement of preferential parking requests. More than 86%, actually 86% of the residents have signed the petition for preferential parking. And there's one resident, I believe, that is against the request, that is not in favor of the preferential parking, but the majority of the residents are. So we're recommending that the commission approve a establishment of a no parking except by permit, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except holidays, preferential parking program on Columbus between Riverdale and Maple Street. As I said, back in approximately 2002, we had the preferential parking problem on Maple as a result of 24-hour, the Bally's Fitness, which is open basically from 5 a.m. to 12 midnight. and 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. So essentially, as you can see from their parking lot, they don't have enough parking, so it basically displaces the on-street parking that is for the residents. We're recommending that the Commission considers approval of the preferential parking. Residents are here, I believe the person who filled the petition or circulated the petition here to provide input to the Commission tonight.
And I do have a few cards. One question, I was under the impression that the preferential parking could have been expanded without coming to the commission.
Yeah, there is a waiting period of approximately 12 months. You know, if this was established in 2002, Maple Street, so basically our staff authority to implement the preferential parking has technically
Past the 12
expired.
months.
So if it happens quickly as we establish preferential parking, we expand it. In this case, it's been a couple of years since the establishment, so we can do it.
More like 7 years.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start calling the speakers. Can we get the lights back on? And this is in no particular order. From the top, April Dellinger.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Speaking on behalf of my fellow
Can
neighbors.
please state your name?
Oh,
as-
April Dellinger.
Thank you.
To get this permit would help a lot. It's all the time, day and night. It's hard to find parking, and there's not very many people that live on that block. Valley Total Fitness customers, I guess you would call them, are walking down Maple down our street, and it's a hazard. I mean, a hazard, but it's an annoyance actually. They park right in the middle, so instead of having three cars parked, you can only park the one. So, I mean, my sister and I, we've all been there many years, and I can't count how many tickets we've all gotten because we didn't get up in time, or, you know, we had to drive around an hour and a half to find parking because there is none. So if you guys would take the time to consider it and get that for us, we'd all appreciate it. Thank you.
Next speaker, Liana Martirosyan.
Good evening. My name is Liana Martirosyan. I've been residing at this address, 600 block of South Columbus Avenue in between Maple and Riverdale, for about 12 and a half years. And me and my mother had always had problems parking, especially the hours of my work and school vary. So sometimes I come home around 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and I have to park about 4 to 5 blocks from my house, and she has to come outside and wait for me to see if it's safe for me to go home. So it's really ridiculous. And the fitness hall, people park over there and they're very inconsiderate, just like April said. They park right in the middle. Instead of, you know, having 3 cars there, there's 1 or 2 cars, and it's very stressful. Not only the ballet fitness, there's a banquet hall across from the fitness. On Saturdays and Fridays, Saturdays, and sometimes Sundays, they have events, and people, instead of valeting their parking, they sometimes come down on Columbus and park there too. And there's also the Central Church, St. Mary's Armenian Church on Central. During Sundays, it's there's no parking. They don't have enough parking at the church, so they come down and park on Columbus Avenue as well. It's very difficult to park. It's getting worse and worse every year, every minute. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Torosian.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Mary Torosian. First, I want to thank you for all your hard work. And I'm here again to speak about the parking permit on Columbus Avenue. I would like to speak on behalf of my Columbus block. They're all here if you want to take a second. We're all here. I think we had it, and I think that speaks for itself. I don't want to repeat everything, but it is really, really hard for us to get home when we're really tired from work, fighting the traffic, want to get home, and we really have to park blocks away. And sometimes when you have to carry a baby car seat and you have to walk down 3 blocks, it's really hard. And, you know, I've lived in Glendale City 32 years. This is my townhome. And this is the first time I asked for your guys' help, and I'm hoping that you can help us. And just, if you can take care of it, that'd be really, really nice. Thank you for your time and effort.
Thank you for coming. Next speaker is Miriam Wazikojoyan, and I apologize if I mispronounced it.
Good evening. My name is Miriam Wazir Kajoyan, and I am one of the probably only 3 homeowners on the block. So I understand there's always 2 sides to every story, and so I just kindly request that you hear my side out. I know I'm outnumbered, and I do, consider all of the problems that they're speaking out. However, as a homeowner, and this is a very tiny little block, there's only 3 houses on that block. The rest of it is the apartment complex that the big group is from. So, as a homeowner, I was completely unaware that this was a problem going on the block, the parking situation. And the first time I heard about it was when I received the February 13th letter in the mail asking for the preferential permit. So, of course, we were shocked as a family. And so, number one, my first point I want to make is about not being informed, and it seems like it's more of the apartment issue and not the 3 houses on the block, because I've also come with my neighbor that owns the house next to ours. And so when you say 75 or 86% that signed in, but it was basically one apartment building, I don't know if all the other residents of the houses were considered, and I would just question the signature on that, but that's another issue. Secondly, I'd like to say that now what this will do to us is that we will need to pay for the privilege to park in front of our own home that we own as property. And mind you, I've owned that house for 18 years. So I want to bring that up. And also, we haven't noticed anything. There's usually parking on our side of the street. Of course, we're on the opposite side of the apartment building because it's only the 2 houses. There's usually parking spots there. When we have guests, they come, they park. So we really were unaware that there was a big problem going on for our neighbors. And third, I would like to say respectfully that the impact that we are worried about is that now, according to the speculations on the letter, so we as a homeowner will be entitled to 1 permit per car, which is 2 cars for our home, plus 2 guest permits, that's 4. And our neighbor would have the same situation. But the apartments then, if you do the math, there's 12 apartments across the street. They will each, if they have 1 or 2 vehicles, they'll get up to 2, plus 2 guests. So that's right there, I'm counting at least 24 spots for the apartments, plus 24 spots for their guests. That's 48 spots. And when I read the report, it says there's only 22 spots on that block. I'm just worried, is this fair and equitable to the 3 homeowners versus the 1 apartment building in terms of how many access to parking we will have there? So, in closing, I wanted to just say that thank you for your consideration. I also feel bad about the situation that our neighbors are having to deal with, and thank you for everything.
Thank you. Last speaker on this item, Sam Torosian.
Good evening. My name is Sam Terosian, and this is regarding the 600 block of Columbus. We really kindly request that you issue that permitted parking. As that lady was mentioning right now, homeowners over there have the capability of parking in their driveways, if at all possible. People who live on that street, it is becoming very difficult to find a parking spot after coming from work and looking around. More often than not, we go to other blocks, 2, 3, 4 blocks, and really fight for parking spots. So we really, that issue need to be taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. Last speaker on this item, Sam Torosian.
Good evening. My name is Sam Terosian, and this is regarding the 600 block of Columbus. We really kindly request that you issue that permitted parking. As that lady was mentioning right now, homeowners over there have the capability of parking in their driveways, if at all possible. People who live on that street, it is becoming very difficult to find a parking spot after coming from work and looking around. More often than not, we go to other blocks, 2, 3, 4 blocks, and really fight for parking spots. So we really, that issue need to be taken care of.
Thank you for coming tonight. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Sulayan?
Quick question, John. Isn't the parking permit for two? It's free. They don't have to
No.
pay
Every permit pays $6 a year.
$6 a year.
And then we provide 2 guest permits.
Right.
If they have more vehicles registered to their residence, they get additional permits. We'll verify that it's registered to that address. They'll get additional permits.
And are any of these apartments on Columbus, do they have parking or they don't have parking?
There's 3 units that don't have off-street parking. There's the unit which is at the corner of Columbus and I can point it out, Jeff, on the... Please point out the ones that do not have off-street parking, technically. Those 3 units, buildings, don't have off-street parking. The one to the north, at Columbus, further north, that one has off-street parking.
And that's 615 Columbus, correct?
That would be, no, north of 615, that's the longer unit. That's 615, above that unit, that building has off-street parking. So technically, they have off-street, some of these buildings have off-street parking, some of them don't. So whenever you have streets of this nature where we have multifamily residential and single-family residential, we've had this problem where either the apartment building doesn't have enough off-street parking or has no off-street parking. So the residents in those apartments have to rely on the on-street parking. Right now, it's first come, first serve. Anybody can park on Columbus right now. The residents who are single family and they have driveways, well, obviously they have the advantage of parking in their driveway or in their parking garage. But the apartment buildings do not have any off-street parking.
Okay, my question will be then, one that have parking, are they parking inside the apartment or the owner is charging, therefore they're parking on the streets?
At this point, we cannot verify that. There's apartments that can be rented with parking, apartments can be rented without parking. And that is a problem in some of the multifamily residential units, that if you rent an apartment without parking, it's cheaper. With parking is more, or every additional parking space, you have to pay more. So some residents don't either have any parking whatsoever, even if they're willing to pay for it, or there is available parking, but they don't pay for it because it's cheaper. In the case that the problem is caused by those apartments that don't have off-street parking whatsoever, so they rely on the on-street parking spaces to use. Then the problem is exacerbated because then you've got residents from Maple also that have a mix of multifamily. They have preferential parking, but they can also park on that section of Columbus as well. So there's, it impacts each other. On top of that, Valley's total fitness, we believe we've solved the problem on Maple because the residents are no longer complaining once we implemented the preferential parking. So then it kind of shifts over to Columbus, and I would anticipate it may shift to the south of Columbus as well once we implement it on Columbus. But this is a problem we have in the downtown area where there's no off-street parking available.
Do we have a copy of the petition on hand?
Yes.
If I can get a copy, Commissioner.
Yeah, I was going to ask you say in the report that you were met the minimum 25% threshold for non-resident parking.
Yes.
Do you know the exact percentage of non-resident parking that you found in the survey?
What we do is we do a license plate survey to see if what percentage. The threshold is 25%. So if there's 25% or more vehicles that are not registered on Columbus, then that means they're non-residents technically. Could be from Maple or any other street.
It could be. Okay.
I can verify with Jeff in a minute as to what the percentage was.
Okay.
But it met the minimum requirement, which is 25%.
I want to just take a quick look at it. I'm interested in the addresses because, honestly, all the speakers that we have here today, they're from the same address. We do have one 616 South, and that was Miriam that spoke, and all the others, they're from 615 South Columbus and different units.
I can tell you that looking at the, and
Yes.
I'll provide you a copy of this. 615, 617, 615, 617, 608, 617, 612, 621, 625,
Okay.
621, 615, 615.
Okay. That's good enough for me. And what was the percentage, Arno?
The percentage was 86%, again, with cases where you have a multifamily residential and a mix of single-family. We count every apartment as part of the total count for the preferential parking, because those tenants in the apartments technically have a right to park on the street as well as a single-family unit. We don't go by frontage or anything because it's a public street, so anybody at any time is able to park on the street. What makes it worse is the days where we have street cleaning, only one side of the street becomes available. So if you're parking on the wrong side of the street and you don't move your vehicle during that window of the street cleaning, they get citations.
And guest parking, that's $6 as well, correct?
No, we don't charge. The guest parking, the two guest parkings are free.
Are free. So it's $6 annually per household.
$6 per household. It's a total of $12.
Unless you have a
Per car.
per vehicle.
Yes.
Unless you're throwing a party and you want to ask for additional passes, you're allowed to do that. Is there a maximum on that?
No, if they have an event or a party, they call us. We provide them with permits that are good for that one day, and those are free.
They're free as well. Okay. I don't have any further comments. Are we ready to vote on this item? Somebody move it.
I'll move it. Move
Okay.
move item 5A.
Second.
Second roll, please.
Commissioner Merabian,
Yes.
Commissioner Sulayan,
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Commissioner Welch,
Yes.
Chairperson Zahakian.
Yes. So item was approved. Next item, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
we will be sending out letters to the residents informing them about the commission action and the process by which they have to receive their permits. At the same time, we'll be installing the signs. So within about 4 to 6 weeks maximum, we'll have the preferential parking in place for the residents. Once they each obtain the permit, we give a little bit of a grace time, so for those residents who are late, they don't get cited if they don't have a permit.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Next item, please, 5B.
Item 5B, report on proposed.
Thank you. Let's wait a couple of minutes till they exit.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
It's a party.
You don't get things too often.
Reverse.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Item 5B, report on proposed preferential parking for the 400 and 500 block of Burchett Street between Pacific Avenue and Kenilworth Avenue. 5B1, resolution approving the following: establishment of a no parking except by permit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week preferential parking restriction on the 400 and 500 block of Burchett Street between Pacific Avenue and Kenilworth Avenue.
Thank you, Eric. Mr. Bagdanian, you probably have a presentation, but I also understand there are some glitches
Yes.
in the petition. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Transportation Parking Commission, I wanted to, before we go into the details about the report itself, I thought I'd bring up the issue that we discovered today. This request for preferential parking, we've been here several times. This item has come to the Commission, and primarily the problem has always been the lack of appropriate number of signatures that's necessary, which is 75% of the residents. At the time when the Commission takes action, we need to have 75% of their signatures. on this slide that you see, there are 23 residents, and I want to be very careful that the 23 is we only count the residential units. The mouse, please. We only count the residential units. So on Burchett, from Pacific to Kenilworth, the units that you see here that are shown in blue and black, those are all residential units. The units that are here at the corner, those are the commercial establishments. There's a Starbucks at the corner here, and there's 7 spaces on street. So we're not counting these in terms of the preferential parking petition requests. From the 23 units, we received a petition from Mr. Jack King that had, from the 23, had 18 that had signed a petition in favor of preferential parking, and there was one resident, which was number 519, was against it, and there were 4 no responses for a total of 23. What has happened in the past, because we've had a situation where a petition was submitted and all of a sudden 1 or 2 residents changed their mind, and we brought this petition, what we did to verify the signatures, we sent a letter out to all the residents, asking them to vote yes or no, or check mark yes or no, whether they're in favor of the petition or not. We did receive essentially 17 responses of yes that match what was already on the petition. Unfortunately, the unit at 528 today, this was late Friday, we received a letter that was returned, and I have a copy of it here, that there's nobody here in this unit anymore. Its unit is vacant, which means that if you count 17 out of the 23, it becomes like 73.9%, unfortunately. I checked with our attorney, Ms. Sansoni, to figure out if the commission has the authority to, so we're only 1% away from the required petition. But and Chris, I'm sure, can verify that for you, what the code actually reads. It says at least 75%. So we're 1% below. Up until now, we were okay, in other words, with the 78%, because that one counted as almost 4%. So we had 78% when we prepared the staff report, when we sent it out. Because we have had this experience before where things have changed, we had mailed out the letters, and U.S. Post Office returned this one as being vacant. So there's no resident here. Unless somebody in the audience here claims that they are either the property owner, I think, or somebody who lives in this unit right now, and the commission we can verify that. Technically, this petition does not meet the preferential parking requirement, so commission cannot take action on it. So it's unfortunate, because we've been here before. We have residents in the audience that are here to speak for or against this request. We have the businesses we invited to be here. So we have this technical issue that has just come up, which was not available to us at the time when we sent the packets out. Otherwise, we would have notified the residents and told them that this is an issue. Unless we get maybe the property owner of 528 to sign a petition, that would be a valid case. I would verify that with city attorney. Technically, we don't have the petition, appropriate number of signatures on this petition for the commission to take action on it. Whether you approve or deny the petition, that's a different issue where the commission would have to take action. And maybe, Ms. Sansoni, if you could...
If we can read the code at this time, if we can turn the lights on, I would like city attorney to read the code, because this commission can't go against the code, and there's no point of taking any action on it. Once we do that, then I would like to verify if the homeowner of that specific property is available or not. Ms. Sanson.
Chairman Sahakian, members of the commission, when I looked at the code just a few moments ago, I also conferred with one of my colleagues back in the office. You might have seen me with my code book scurrying out of the chambers, but I wanted to be absolutely sure, so I did get a second opinion on this, and we both agree. The initial threshold is at least 75% of the residents living in the area need to sign the petition. But that's the first threshold. The second threshold is at the TPC meeting. tonight, where the Transportation Parking Commission and the code reads, shall establish a preferential parking district only if it finds, and among other things, residents representing at least 75% of adjacent dwelling units desire, agree, and request the establishment of the preferential parking district. This means that there must be 75% of the residents at least available and as wanting the preferential parking before the Transportation Park Commission can meet that finding. This is not unlike other types of initiatives or petition-like matters where there are two thresholds, and one is at the time of the petition, and the second being the time that the administrative body considers the petition request. But it's unfortunate that in this situation it was only one resident that made the difference, but that is what the code says.
Okay. Mr. Bagdanian, what's the address in question?
528.
528.
Well, you said that there were 4 properties that had not responded, right?
Right. 4 that, and then we verified that they are the same 4 that did not sign the petition that was circulated by Mr. King. He's in the audience today. They're the same. So, that we verified that what Mr. King submitted is accurate, and it was accurate at the time because we do have the tenants who used to occupy 528. I mean, they checked up okay. But the same address came back that now it's vacant. So between when the petition was signed, which was January, we got a postmark, January 22nd, between when they, signed it, at some point they moved out. I don't know what the date was. So what I wanted to ask, Mr. Chairman, with your permission from City Attorney, is that if the property owner of 528, I know they may not be here, but at a later date, if they agree with the petition, would that still be considered okay? Or it has to be the tenant or the resident, somebody has to actually live in that unit?
Excuse me. The code is specific as to residents. And so this means someone occupying the unit. The owner, an off-site owner, couldn't be counted if the actual unit is vacant. Under the language,
counts as a no.
Cannot be counted.
As a no vote.
It would be counted as no vote. Okay.
Sure, I will.
Yes, we'll take a look at it. So one thing I want to make it very clear that it has to be a resident. It needs to be 75% minimum. Okay. Now, from there, Commissioner Solan, you have a question, I believe.
Yes, to Ms. Sansoni. The 4 that did not respond, is that automatically no? Or it doesn't count, period? If it doesn't count, then the total number is 19. And if 1% said no, that means they have 94% approval. So I'd just like to know the code, when 4 does not respond, either yay or no, would that count as a total, or that's subtracted and the total will be 19?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sulayan, the code is specific in that it's at least 75% of the residents. You have to count all of the residents and then do the percentage from that, all of the residents being 100%. And this is how Mr. Bagdanian has calculated it.
All our, Mr. Chairman, all the way we count, like the previous one, when we counted, we count how many homes are on the street. This is the same as when we do not only this, or
traffic calming.
Traffic calming also. So if there are 20 homes on the street, whether they're occupied or not, there are 20 homes. And then from that, we count the number of signatures. So if it's vacant, it still counts in the total, but it doesn't count as a yes vote. So if it's vacant or there's no response, it's a no. That's how we've done, yeah. Technically, it counts as a no.
It counts as a no in the sense that you can't make the 75%. Because 75% of the residents do want this preferential parking. Then you have the ability to come to the Transportation Parking Commission where the second calculation is made, making sure that all of the units that have said yes are still in favor.
Mr. Chairman, this is consistent with all the cities. Now, there might be a better way of doing this in the future to say, if we have vacancies or whatnot, if we go to come back to the commission and make that's a policy decision, and then we have to go to city council, get it approved, so that we only count the actual units that are occupied, because, one vote this way or that way could, take away the benefit of to the residents if there truly is a problem, which there is a problem on the street. I mean, there's no question about it. So, but under the code, I try to, in any which way I can, convince Ms. Sansoni, if not to convince, but request that there's only one percentage and it's a vacant home. Is there a way the commission can override that percentage point? But according to the municipal code, we can't do that. What I got from Mr. If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Ortiz, who is the property owner at the buildings here, whether this is a valid or not, but only thing it says, to whom it may concern that the property located at 528 Burchett Street is vacant and has been vacant for over 6 months with no resident. So I cannot.
This is from the.
This is from U.S. postman that I guess delivers mail, and there's a phone number which, unless we are able to verify this was dated February 20th. So unless we verify this, I can't tell you that this.
Well, our verification process is we did receive a return mail that there's no residence at that address.
But in January, supposedly there was somebody living there that signed this piece of paper, which is what we were requesting to come back to city.
In January, somebody signed it.
Somebody, January 22nd, they put their name on it and they check that they support, and there's a phone number on here.
Okay.
But because we got this today, there was no time to verify whether or not at the time this. But again, goes back to the issue that now, today, when the commission takes action, you need to meet that 75% threshold, which we don't have that now.
Commissioner Wells.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question about the appeals process. If, for example, we were to deny this, what would the residents do in terms of appeal? Is there a cost involved in appealing it to City Council, or is it an onerous task?
No. I will defer the process, but there is no charge. We do not charge in preferential parking. There's only had one situation in the past over the last 15, 16 years where we've maybe had an appeal of not really essentially, the preferential parking was established. It was just the hours, instead of they wanted no parking at any time. Some of the businesses wanted like 2-hour parking except by permit. That's the only thing that was appealed to the council maybe 10 years ago.
And presumably the council could negate the 75% or not? They're still going to be bound by that same finding?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Welsh, there is an appeals process, but it's an appeal of the decision of the commission. The commission's unable to hear this if the 75% threshold hasn't been reached.
Correct. Well, I would disagree with that. They got the first one. They got 75% on the petition in the first place. They had 78%. So we can hear the case, but we can't make the findings to approve it.
You can't make the findings.
Right.
And
but we could still have the hearing if we wanted to.
You can't reach a decision. You would have to be a denial.
Well, exactly.
If you're going to hear it.
That's the point of what I'm saying, is that we could have a hearing and make a decision, but it would have to be a denial.
So the question is, what is the purpose of having the hearing if you can't make
Well, that's why I'm asking about the appeals process with the council.
There is an appeals process, and it's in a uniform appeals process, Chapter 2.88 of the Municipal Code. There is a charge. I don't know what the charge is, but there is a fee to take a matter up to the City Council for appeal. And the other question that you had is whether the commission or the council, and I think the question was the council can override the code. They can only do that by passing a new ordinance. So that wouldn't be a direct response to the appeal.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Wiseman.
No, I was just going to say briefly, I'm not sure, Commissioner Welch. I thought I saw where you were going with this, and I think what I've been thinking also is this is not the first time this matter has come up. I imagine there's a certain level of frustration on the part of the residents of Burchett Street that would like to get this settled, and whatever pathway it is that will lead us to the quickest way to conclude it, would be optimum. So, I don't know if having a hearing and denying it would take us down that path or not, but...
Well, it doesn't sound like it from
No,
what
it
I just
doesn't.
heard, so.
Quick question, Mr. Chano. The 4 that did not respond, have we tried to...
We shouldn't be getting into that. It's not staff's responsibility if they don't. If a resident chooses not to say yay or nay, they want to stay neutral. I don't want staff to get into knocking at their door and saying, "Are you sure you don't want to vote yes or no on this?"
Let me tell you what
Yes.
I'm getting at before you conclude. The reason I'm saying that is this is not the first time Burchett Street came to us, either orally in the last 6 years to request parking, or by email. So if the city spent money, and I'm sure the city spent a lot of time to come up with this report and come up with their analysis, I don't want to. I mean, we're barely 74% here, so I don't want to put this in a closet and done deal. Tomorrow, one of the owners, if they sell, like the 528 moves out, and that person moves in and wants their, preferential parking. I don't want the city to go back and forth and do some analysis until they get to 75%. So I'm just trying to find a way on those 4 residents that did not respond before we conclude. If they can appeal, is there any way we can approach them one more time, just to make sure that this is not, because this is not the first time it comes in front of this commission.
So when you say appeal, Commissioner Sulayan, I want to understand, for staff to go back to those 4 residents to make sure if they want to vote yes or no on the item?
No, I'm saying just send a letter saying that, it got postponed. We would like to hear from you. I mean, I don't know what the wording should be.
Well, absolutely. I mean, in this sense, because we're short, we go back to the 78%. Because I'm in a position personally, I think it's not to your benefit for this commission today to hear it. I mean, everybody's here, and I think the commission should hear from the speakers. We're here to hear you guys. But as far as making a decision, it's going to force us to deny it. And I'm leaning towards approving it, to tell you the truth. So I don't want us to go down that route. We will hear from you guys. So we don't want us to go down that route. And you heard it from the city attorney's office. If we are to hear this at this time tonight, what we're going to end up doing is denying it, and what's going to end up happening is you guys appealing it back to council. And you guys have been down that route before. Okay? So what I'm going to do at this time, I'm going to call the speakers to the podium, and we do have 7-8 speakers, and we're going to hear from you guys. If you would like to speak, and if you're not here, please fill out a card, and we're going to hear all of you guys, and then after that, we'll make a decision. Fair enough? Okay, so at this time, I'm going to open oral communication for this item, and the first speaker is Thomas Ortiz.
Oh, sorry, I took your pen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think they don't meet the requirement to submit this petition because they're not 75%. So I think this hearing should be closed at this time, and that's it. We would like to resolve this problem, but if the votes are not there to be able to accommodate it, we're ready to go. I have 4 votes here from the residents that are in question here. I also have 700 petitions here from residents in the community that are against preferential parking. Now, if you want me to give you my presentation, I'd be more than happy to tell you both sides of the story, but I don't think that we can really make a decision today. As the city attorney said, they don't have the required votes, and the law is the law. So whatever you guys wanted, if you want me to proceed, I'll be more than happy. I've brought my team. I know the neighbors want some resolution. I would like to I offered a solution to this problem, which is 1 hour parking for the commercial entities and residential parking for the tenants, for the residents whenever they want it, 24 hours a day. So, I can show you that, basically, I brought these and I might as well show them to you now. So, basically, this is...
Before we do that, is it possible to get a copy of the petitions, the 4 residences in question?
Absolutely. I'll give you all
Yeah.
700. How's that? They're marked on the addresses. There's 700 petitions there.
Well, the 700, they need to be residents within the block. Out of the 700, those
the
4
that you are
are.
referring to is Bill Baker. It's 501, 503, 519, and 517. Those are the specific people that you're talking
Okay.
about. 533
Let's do that.
is a 528 is vacant according to the mailman.
If you could speak into the mic, please.
Yeah, it was not a proper document. My attorney wanted me to get one, but I did it rather hastily because I was talking to him. I said, living on the street, I was wondering who signed that petition because we've had trouble in the past with these petitions. We had a forged signature in 2002. We had coerced neighbors that were not told the truth about what preferential parking really means. It's not going to be a cure-all for all the people in the street. All these people have driveways from 3 to 7 parking spaces in their driveways. They have garages, and they also use trash cans for their own private parking permit as it is right now. Basically, here's the pictures of the driveways that they all have. Happy to put these right here for you guys to see. Every one of these homes, and the report is inaccurate, I'm sorry, Jeff, but the report says that there's 1 to 2 parking spaces in the driveway. Each and any individual on this street has 3 to 7 parking spaces, including a garage. In addition to that, there's
I'm going to give you
also-
1 more minute.
Oh, fine. In addition to that, there's also, these are the driveways here. These are the trash cans that are all...
Can we put them up on the easel so this way this public can also see it, please?
Fine.
Actually, it's okay. I actually need to do these things unless you want more.
I want them over there because it's only fair that everybody sees it.
Yeah, let's take a look at it. Here's another one here. These are the driveways with 3 to 7 parking spaces on the street, not including the garages. Here they are. And I can show you exactly what the addresses are if you'd like to put that back up. This is 524. She's got 7 parking spaces plus a garage. This is 528. This is right there. This is a vacant home. This is, I think, 532. One of the individuals here, both a fifth wheel, a double car garage, and 2 cars. Okay, he's got enough for 2 more cars in the back, but he's got everything lined up. What the problem is, many of these people have multiple cars in their family, and it's a logistical problem. They don't, the young lady, the daughter comes home from work late, Pop doesn't want to get up and wake her up, and that's a problem. They have parking off-street. Also, this indicates here that the trash cans are out there for the last 2 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for many of them, especially for the main petitioner here, Jack King. Here's his house right here. He's got private parking, permit only, by trash cans. Okay, also the next property here, Alfredo Cello, who had a forged signature, and I haven't been able to verify the signatures on any of the petitions because of some legal case that there was some problems with the petitioners and they were in danger. That isn't happening here. No one's in danger on this street. So basically, these are the trash cans. So, all I have to say...
We can turn that and put it facing the audience, please.
And even today, one of the policemen came by and told Mr. Jack King to put his trash cans in after they'd been there for a week. And now I'm not even sure if Jack King still lives there on the street. Now, the other thing that I think is important for you to look at, since 1991...
From the other mic.
Okay, let me put this right here so you can see that. Since 1991, and I have some documentation for you guys to look at this here. since 1991.
If we can,
Young man, if you could
Mr.
distribute these, please, to the commissioners. There's 5 of them here for all of them. What I'm handing out to you is the parking that has been taken away by Traffic and Transportation and Public Works since 1991. In 1991, there were 13 spaces in front of my building, and there was landscaping that was put in there. George Miller was in charge of Public Works at that time. At that time, I said, we need that parking. He said, we're going to take the parking. There was a problem on Burchett, Hahn Street, and Pacific because there was a 5-leg intersection. It was taking too much time to come down Pacific. So basically, they removed 13 parking spaces. That was a big mistake. In 1991, this property had 28 more parking spaces than it does today. 21 more spaces. They've given us 7. Now, they took 4 in 2006 in front of Acapulco. They took 3 in 2008. And they took 1 in 2002 with a fire hydrant. Now, right down the street, we have a fire hydrant. It was told to me that you have to be 18 feet away from a parking space to have the fire hydrant, it has to be 18 feet away from a parking space. Well, right down the street here at 430 Burchett, there's a 6-foot red spot with a fire hydrant. Selective enforcement. Now, we need to do something down there because there's a few of the people from Starbucks are disrespectful for the property owners. I don't like it, and I don't think anybody. These people have been here for a while, and this one. Let me get my what I prepared.
We need to wrap it up, Mr. Ortiz.
Okay.
We have quite a few speakers after you.
Well, basically, this property's been here since 1928. It was C2 zoned. There's 21 parking spaces that have been removed. Now, in 2006, we offered the city $100,000, Starbucks and myself, to restore the original parking that has been taken away, and we were denied. That would have sought, the neighbors were in favor of that. I could have got approval from everybody on that, and the city chose not to do it. Basically, taking away all the parking on the street is not the answer. The solution is 1-hour parking for the customers and permit parking for the residents. They have a lot of parking in their driveways. I understand it's very busy. We have pass-through traffic from Glen Oaks. We have over 30,000 cars, if I'm not mistaken, on Pacific that go to the freeway. It is a busy commercial district. There's these homes there, and they've been there for a long time. My building's been there since 1928. Most of the residents have moved in after Starbucks has been there. Some of them have been there much longer. But a majority of the people have come there after Starbucks. You don't move near an airport if you don't like airplanes. This is not a residential district at the top of the hill where there's not going to be any traffic. The quality of life would need to be maintained, but there needs to be a balance between the residents and the commercial entities. So, you don't put one out with the other. Especially in today's economic times when things are so difficult. Businesses are going out of business. Homes are being foreclosed. General Motors, American companies are being subsidized by the government. This 3 successful businesses here. It's important that we have a proper balance between commercial and residents. I think 1-hour parking for the commercial entities will ensure ride sharing, will ensure employees, full-time and part-time, they'll have to move. That will ensure more parking for the residents.
Okay.
I think that's the solution to this situation. Thank you.
Next speaker, Robert Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Commissioners, I represent Mr. Ortiz. I'd like to take a brief moment to direct the Commission's attention to the requirements that would be required to pass this petition. Apart from the issue with regard to the qualifying nature of the 75%, There are other conditions that also have to be satisfied no one has talked about yet.
When you say you represent, you're an attorney?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Okay. The ordinance is very clear. The authority granted to create one of these preferential districts shall be exercised if and only if this commission makes three specific findings. First, you have to have the desire and agreement of 75% of the people, as Ms. Sansoni has talked about. And I understand that you measure that at two different places in time, the time of the petition, the time of the action. In addition, though, the first condition that is required by the ordinance is that there must be a shortage of reasonably available and convenient parking for the residents. Now, it's not residents of the area. It's residents of 75% of the adjacent dwelling units. Those are discrete residential units. We have not had the opportunity to test the accuracy. And we're relying upon what staff says with regard to qualifications of 78%, assuming that the 528 problem is solved. However, the documents that have been produced for us pursuant to the Public Records Act do not show a traffic survey that shows anything like that. In fact, the traffic survey that I was provided with shows that on the highest count there were 27 cars on the street. There are 47 parking spaces on this street. Now, does that mean there's no problem? Of course not. But there hasn't been a traffic survey. And if there were, I'm absolutely unenlightened as to how one distinguishes between guest parking for residents of the area and unregistered cars. Simply finding that a car is not registered to an owner does not say that it's not in use, an authorized use, by someone who is a resident. Lastly, there has to be a finding of hardship. I've yet to see anything factual to support any finding of hardship here. We have a lot of people who would like to have private parking on the city street. There's no question about that. But the code doesn't give you the authority to do that. You must have findings as to all three matters, and those findings must be supported by the facts. I would request that you make certain of that, excuse me, when this matter is considered on the merits. Thank you.
Yeah. Harold Fancelow.
My name is Harold Fonslow, and I am a client of Tom Ortiz. My experience is that I parked there for about half an hour and leave, and I've never had any problem parking. I would like the commission to consider that putting preferential parking might destroy the businesses in this area. And in this economy, I wonder what good that would do. These are businesses that are producing income and employment and taxes to the city. So therefore, I would ask the Commission to be careful about enforcing preferential parking when those of us who come for the businesses only park for half an hour, as opposed for the Starbucks company that the parking is even less than 10 minutes or so. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mary Ortiz.
My name is Mary Ortiz. I'm the wife of my husband, Tom, who spoke, and we've been owners of the building at 469 Burchett since 1978. Since 1988 we've owned it, but Tom has run his hair salon business there since 1978. The building was built in 1928 and has always served the community needs for the immediate community. It was the local market. The houses of Burchett were built at the same time. Many things have changed throughout the last 81 years, but one thing has remained constant. The building at 469 Burchett is still serving the needs of the immediate community. We must now create balance. The answer is not permanent parking 24/7, which would interfere with established businesses, which, by the way, have every right to be in business in this location. The answer is 1 hour parking at all times with permitted parking for the residents. A healthy balance and compromise is the answer. The great thing about Glendale is that it lets all residents feel that they have a voice and that someone will listen. In the spirits of balance and cooperation, I have complete confidence that this great city of Glendale will do their very best and use their best judgment in coming to a decision that will offer the residents and business a fair and balanced solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack King.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Jack King. I wished I had known that we had a problem. And somehow or another, I guess at the last minute, we run into a problem. And so
well, we found out about it today, Mr. King.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I wish if I'd known, we've wasted a lot of time here. But what I don't understand is the numbers. And that's what I'm a little confused with. Now, this is the map that I have, and I'm sure it's very similar to this one, okay? And we do have, and here's the people that signed up on our petition, and of course we had 19 on here. And so when these other letters went out, and we had been talking with, our representative, Jeff, it didn't seem that we were running into a problem. We knew there were 3 to 4 people on the street that, were not in agreement with us particularly, although our next-door neighbor would have signed, but she said, well, you've already got enough, and not worry about it. And she's having problems parking it. And that's at 501, and we're at 503. I'm at 503. I have a 96-year-old mother. I've moved in with her in 2000, and I've been sort of fighting this parking situation ever since. We do have a parking thing, and it's 7 days a week, approximately 17 hours a day. Now, you visualize yourself in an area where it's 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, this is, and we have people that are there at night, parking in front, especially in various areas there, and sometimes leave their cars there. So, let's get back to the 75%. That's crucial, needless to say. And so, what I'm looking at is how do we, I still don't understand which ones. I know that 528, the people bought that home, and they were going to renovate it, and found out because of certain codes and et cetera, they weren't able to do that. But they live in Glendale, and they don't live here at this point, but they own that property. They have signed our petition. We have talked to them. We have the next door neighbor here that has been watching their property for some time. Yes, they're not living in it at this point, but they plan to, or they plan to rent it, and they want to have it so that they can rent it, so that there is parking available, to that particular house. So, I didn't know about and I've been doing this. This is the 4th time. I'm sorry, I'm over time. I don't know whether we want to go any further.
Please continue.
But this is, like I say, the 4th time, and I didn't know that if the building or home was not lived in at that particular moment of time, and the owner of that building didn't have any say about what they had there, I didn't understand that. Should have known it, I guess. But we figured that 528 was a done deal, because that's what they wanted. That's what they want as the owner of that property. But let's go through the numbers. I'm still confused. We've got the 475, and 475 said he wanted it. Okay? Now we go into 503. That's wanted there. 511, 515, 521, 523, 527, 531, 537, 539, 541, 543. Okay? Then we got 544, 540, 536, 532, and 524 without the 528. How many is that? What's the percentage?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the problem.
17 is what?
17 is 73.9%.
Of how many?
23.
Of 23.
Right.
Okay, so you're.
Two of them are rentals.
But that's okay.
Please, I don't want any involvement.
Yeah, no.
You'll get your chance to speak. You submitted a
Yeah,
call.
well, we do have additional rental. I mean, they're rentals, but that's okay. They're residents, at that point. And I believe they were signed in. One was not, because 519 has a unit, okay, and 521 has a unit. So they're counted as two. So if you're going to add that in, then we have 18.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just go through the count.
Yes.
If we count from 475, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23.
Okay.
We are counting 23 units, so I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with Mr. King. We have 23.
Right.
From these 23, the ones that I show in black, those are the four, which would be the 501 hasn't signed,
Right.
517 hasn't signed, 533 hasn't signed, 537.
Wait a minute. Five what?
Okay. Based on the verification that we got,
Okay.
we sent out I believe it matches.
Yeah, that's of course that's what I'd like to know.
Okay, so we have, I'll repeat, 501,
Okay.
517,
Okay.
519 said no. Okay?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
on our
517 and 519.
19. Basically
they're out
counts
of
as
there.
a no.
Right. Okay.
And then 533 and 537, both of those have not responded. And those you did not receive signatures from them either. In other words, they did not sign.
You're saying
533, 537 did not sign your petition.
Wait a minute. I think they
we
did.
We have the verification. This is what we want to clarify.
We've had 537 signed the petition. Okay.
Based on our verification, we did not receive. And the reason we've done this is because in the past we've been to this position before.
Okay,
where
so
we have a petition and one resident or somebody changed their mind. So make sure we can verify their signatures. We send out the letter. So right now, even if 537 had signed originally, similar to 528, we did not get a response from 537 in our request.
And how much time do we give them to respond?
The letters was sent out on January 13, and we requested.
It's over a month.
Yeah.
We gave them 10 days to respond.
Okay,
because the residents wanted this thing to be brought to the commission in a timely manner. So because of this issue, we give them 10 days. To date, we have not received a response.
Okay.
So if 537 right now is verified that they are in favor, that gives that one signature that we're missing, because 528 technically is vacant.
Yeah. Well, 537 I've talked to. She's very happy about the whole thing. I don't know. There's several families that live there, but I mean, her family, because it's a unit. It's one of those condominium units there that have 3 floors.
Mr. King, I'm going to give you one more minute.
Okay, I don't understand why 537, and what was the other number you're talking about? I'm sorry, I missed that.
533 and 537, based on the signature verification we did. When I say signature verification by mail that we did not respond to us.
533.
And 533, 537, 501, 517. and 519 was against the petition.
But 533, where's 533?
533 is right there.
Here.
There's a 530, I have a 537 and a 539 and a 541 and a 543. There's not 5 units in there, there's only 4 units.
We have a...
There's only 4 units in there. There's not 5 units.
Okay, this is not something that we're going to be able to
Well, I know,
resolve
I can
tonight.
understand that, but I
Correct.
think we've got some number problems here.
Well, it could be, and it's something
And if I
that
had known
staff
about
needs
it,
to verify.
even yesterday or last week, we could have had this resolved. But here is the map. You take a look at it. There's 4 units there. There's not 5 units in that condominium. Yeah.
Okay, what I'm going to do is ask staff to verify the number of units in that complex.
Right.
In that block. But at this time, do you have anything to add?
No, I think
Okay.
we've heard it all. But thank you very much. I appreciate your consideration on this. We have been doing this since 2001, and it has not worked out quite as well as we'd like to see it, needless to say, as a group. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Bagdanian?
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion, unless there's any more cards that you would...
There are more cars, and to be fair, unless they don't want to speak, I'd like to hear from all of them.
My suggestion was, obviously we've heard from people who are for or against this. I was wondering, just curious to know, since the commission, we already spent the time tonight, if the residents would consider the 1 hour except by permit option. Because we couldn't circulate that. I mean, we brought it to the commission because it was proposed by Mr. Ortiz. Once they found out that the petition is coming to the commission, they proposed that 1 hour except by permit. However, we couldn't give the commission, provided, let's say, the petition was okay, the 75% was met, we couldn't bring it to the commission because we didn't have a signed petition for the 1 hour except by permit. So one option could be, if at least some of the residents that are here, that would consider the 1 hour except by permit, that we would send that out to the residents, and there's 4 residents that are against it. Mr. Ortiz seems to know those residents, and that they said they don't like this petition. Maybe 1 or 2 of those residents will agree with the 1 hour except by permit. And we can double check the 533, which if there is a unit, because we have an address there, obviously. So we can double check if there is a person living there, if that's a valid address or not. And so we may be able to send this letter without putting them under the whole process again. And if we can get, 75%, we basically have a compromise solution. We can try it for 1 hour except by permit. If it doesn't work, the residents can come back to the commission again to resolve it. Otherwise, we will have the situation of having no preferential parking at all, because we've been here for 4 or 5 times.
Correct.
Every time we try to verify the signature, somebody changes their mind, unfortunately. And it could be one of the residents, and we have no control over it. As you said, as staff, we don't go and try to convince residents one way or the other. We can only ask them, are they in favor or they're not in favor. So it might be helpful, since we have everybody here, Mr. King or some of the residents, to ask them if they would be okay with the 1 hour. That gives us the tool to send this letter back out to all the residents and make sure that they all respond. And the ones they know, they can actually knock on their door. So please at least respond to this letter. Whether they like it or not, we will know what the true desire of the residents are. Then we'll bring that back to the commission, hopefully for a final time.
The letter will be just for the 1 hour, or will be for both options?
We can include both options. It might be easier if you have one option, because that way you can consolidate. Otherwise, you may get 50% in favor of one option and 50% or 45% in favor of the other option. A couple people won't resonate. It seems to me that the people who are for or against this, to solve this problem, They know enough of the residents that they can meet with. We'll be happy to meet with them also in this area. But every time, as I said, we've tried. We've met with owners of Mary Callan. We asked if Starbucks can get lease spaces from them because their parking doesn't get used all the time. But they don't want to. They don't want to, or their fees were very high that Starbucks couldn't rent the parking spaces. So believe me, we've tried every which way we can to solve this problem. We've had community task force to deal with this problem. So if there's a way that we can strike a compromise, may not be the best thing. No parking except by permit for the residents. Maybe the 1 hour is an option that at least it's a halfway that can solve both sides. As you said, as you can see from the pictures, there is off-street parking available. This is totally different than what you've considered on Columbus. So that's an option. Just want to throw it out there to hopefully be able to come up with solution to this. And if just curious to hear from Mr. King or some of the residents if they would consider the 1 hour
Mr. King,
option.
he did the petition, correct? So it needs to be you, Mr. King, telling us if it's acceptable for you that staff sends out the letter. If you can please come to the podium. Since you're spearheading the project, if you need to make that decision if it's acceptable for staff to send out a letter recommending 1 hour parking for commercial and residents, of course, all day by permit. It is a compromise, and my position on it, Mr. King, is I drove the area. It is different than other neighborhoods where driveways accommodate 1 or 2 parking, or houses they have no driveways whatsoever. So for this commission to prove hardship, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult when a driveway has 4 or 5 parking spaces. And I'm sure that residence does not have 7 or 8 vehicles. It's going to be very hard. If it was limited, if off-street parking for the resident is limited, by all means. You saw us how we approved the item beforehand. I mean, this commission is all about quality of life. But unfortunately here, we need to strike a balance because of the demographics of the street and what have you. So if that's acceptable for you, I think it's a good compromise.
I think it has some merit to it. I'm concerned about the 1 hour parking after 6 o'clock at night, because we have more problems at night, basically, because the customers for Starbucks are generally in and out. Not all of them, because some of them park there all day and then go somewhere else, but somewhere on the street. But that generally is not the bigger problem. It's the evening situation that is the biggest problem, in terms of there's a different class of a type of clientele at night, and then who's going to monitor that hour parking? The meter maid can't do that after 6 o'clock. Is that right? So you've got a couple of things to look at if we're going to put something together like that. And I agree that we've had a problem. We have 2 houses on the street that they don't have driveways. And then the condos have parking, in their setup in the back. But as far as front parking, those 4 units don't have front parking. If again, I'm saying, if you're looking at, that number, say, so you just can't drive down the street and say, well, everybody has a lot of parking. We have probably 3 cars that could fit. But then again, if you have people parked out in front of you, and they're parked there, and you try to get that other car out and park it somewhere, in most cases, we got to park down near the park before, we can do. And the same thing with my 96-year-old mother. I've got, a problem there. And other people do too, so I'm not the only one. What I'm saying is that I would like to be able to work out something so that Tom and his operation has some, way of taking care of. It's a large volume of business that they have there. There's no question about it. And there's a lot of people that like to stop there and get their coffee, and this, that, and the other. But we're inundated with that along with the freeway. I don't know whether you know that, we're that entrance area and exit area for the freeway on that street. And so
believe me, I do. And Mrs. Ortiz, he mentioned that you have over 30,000 vehicles.
There's
traveling.
there's a lot of automobiles, and of course that's meaningful, again to the business, including Marie Callender's, which they deserve to make some kind of profit and etc. on their endeavor. But I don't know. Maybe there's some way. I don't know whether it's an hour. What about a half an hour?
What I'm going to suggest, Mr. King, is...
Yeah, well, I'd like to work on this.
Right. If I may, if staff can arrange a meeting with Mr. King, Mr. Ortiz, not now, on another day, to sit down and look at the different options. It could be that it's to maybe 9 p.m. or 7 p.m., something that's acceptable for both parties. And then let's bring it back to this commission, because I don't think, I'm not in a position to, well, the commission is not in a position to take any action on this item tonight. Again, I'll be more than happy to continue and hear from the rest of the speakers. But again, we can't take action on it, and also we need to, this is one situation where we need to find common grounds. That's the bottom line. And when I went out there today to take a look at it, I look at the whole block basically, and the number of spaces that are available on the whole block. And when I drove it, it seemed to me, and you're right, maybe it's after 6 p.m., but when I drove it, there was ample parking on the street available.
What time was it?
When I drove it today, it was around 2 p.m., 2 to 10 p.m.
Your Honor, it's too soon.
Well, regardless,
We go back from work to our home.
But you got to look at the whole block. I live by Nibley Park, and I sometimes have to park 700 to 800 feet down towards Ethel Street because they're occupied.
Right.
But there's a criteria. We take a look at the whole block. We don't take a look at right in front of your residence if there's available parking or not. And believe me, I sympathize and understand. You have an elderly, you have your mother, and it's much easier if she parks right in front of the house to get in. So and staff will consider that. So that's what I'm going to suggest with the consent of the commissioners. Commissioner Sulayan, you have a question?
I have a quick question. I mean, I have two questions. If they agree, and before you send the letter, can we before sending a letter, we need to verify if 533 exists or not? That's one. Second, he has an option to talk to Unit 501, I believe he said.
Right.
Verify that at the same time that he's verifying, the city's verifying for 533, and then if you agree about the 1 hour parking or whatever it might be, then they can send the letter. But I don't want the city to send a letter while these two issues are not resolved yet.
No, I want this resolved also.
Before sending the letter, before we send the letter...
Yes, I would rather see us get resolved on the people that really wanted this.
Right, and verify 533 if it's 4 units or 5 units.
Yeah. We can do that.
That's a staff that needs to do, but you need to verify the
Something we can...
I will definitely try to walk personally with Mr. King and Ortiz to verify those units.
Okay. And is there anybody from, in this chamber, anybody from 501, 517, or 519?
I have a signed petition from 501, and I've given you that they're against any type of permit parking. I could get them to agree that one of them...
If you can, please. But regardless, 501 is one unit that it's not even considered in our petition because there's no response from them.
Well,
so it's counted as a no.
Right.
I understand that, but if there's any discretion, she has signed, Ray Navarro has signed my petition that he's against it, but he would agree to 1 hour parking. He would agree to a compromise. Everyone that I've spoken to would agree to a compromise. I think, I recommended 6 p.m. To 6 a.m. Permit parking, 1 hour parking up until 6 p.m. so that when the residents come home, they can have parking. But staff came up with 24 hours because they thought it was pretty much the same thing because there's not that many people there in the evenings. But, when people come home, they want parking. They have parking on their driveways, but it's not enough, apparently. So, we are flexible to have 1 hour parking and resolve this matter so everyone in the street is
And if I
happening.
heard correctly, you said 6 p.m. would be acceptable to your tenants.
Well, I'd have to
and-
discuss it with, I have
Right.
contractual obligations with Starbucks, and I don't know, I don't know if they're 1 hour or 2 hour, but I think if you had 1 or 2 hour parking, it would ensure that you have turnover from employees, ride sharing. You'd have to move the cars, and you were there today. There is ample parking, and if you have 1 hour restrictions or 2 hour restrictions, people have to move their cars. So, and they have permits 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can park there whenever they want. They have the street parking. They have their driveway parking. That makes sense to me. It's a balance. We can put this thing to rest, and we can go on our day.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, at this time, I want to ask the rest of the speakers if you want to continue and come up to the podium or not. And so I'm going to read the names one by one, and please let us know if you want to speak or not. Peter Fuad, Rodney Khan. Yes. Okay, please.
I'll be brief, considering where we're at in the hearing. First of all, my name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located here in the city of Glendale. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners, and City staff. The only thing I'd like to add to this, I think that that's a very reasonable compromise which is being suggested by the Commission. This is the fourth time, or the fifth time. I remember back in 2000, I worked with Mr. Ortiz in putting Starbucks in that location. We had challenges for variances. The variances went away. We had challenges for a multitude of things, and here we are again. So obviously, there's something going on out there, and obviously there needs to be some type of solution. I think this 1 hour parking is that solution. I looked at the staff report, and not to belabor the point, because I think Mr. Ortiz already highlighted it. There was field observations, and it wasn't just field observations from staff. We've done our own field observations, and it is customers coming to the different commercial establishments, Marie Callender's, guest parking also for the Presbyterian homes, but also especially Starbucks, and saying, okay, how is it to be a responsible business? Because there has been issues out there. So that's where we looked at, and it said in the report there were part-time and full-time employees. How do you address that? There's also ride sharing. How would you address that? I think the 1 hour parking, or 1 to 2 hours, whatever gets negotiated, determined, and discussed, would certainly make a lot of sense. Will it solve everything? No. But will it improve that area? Absolutely. The last thing I want to leave you on, this area is very much a mixed-use area. You have commercial, you have single-family residential, you have multiple-family residential, and then you have the park at the end of the street. So a lot of people like to point to one business and put all the ills of everything that goes on in that area on the one business. That's not true, that's not accurate, and that's not fair. Are there issues there? Yes. Will this compromise address those issues? I think it will. Anyway, I'll conclude my remarks. Thank you for listening to me this evening.
Thank you. Gerald Green. Greg Hill.
Yeah, the only thing to me seems to get
Please
the
state
numbers
your name,
down.
Mr. Hill. You have to state your name again.
Oh, my name is Greg Hill.
Thank you.
And the thing to me is get the numbers right, and there's more. There's only two people, basically, who don't support this on the street, and that's 519, which is also 517, by the way. That's their rental number. The only other one being, well, you're not counting 528 now, right? Even though the owner of the property signed this?
Well, it's not the signature, it's the verification process. Staff has a verification process. If they don't respond to the letter from staff to verify that they've signed it or not, then it's not counted.
They did.
They did reply, Mr. Daniel?
528, they did reply when we sent the letter. Then we got a return
Well, that's the postal
I'm sorry,
that nobody lives there.
yeah,
Okay,
nobody lives
that's the address. So that's what basically threw a wrench in this, that nobody is vacant, nobody lives there, and the code is very specific. It needs to be a resident who lives there signing the petition. So you could be living in Colorado, and if your house is empty, signing the petition is not going to mean anything.
So the person who owns that house does not get a vote at all, is what you're saying?
He'll get a vote if he lives there. That's per the code. That's, again, Ms. Sanson, if you can verify that. That's not up to, you have to live there.
Okay.
It's just like any homeowners association. The owner is not voting on the issues, it's the resident.
Okay, well, let's see if we can't get it rented tomorrow. I think it's really obvious what's going on. You know, the problem is Starbucks. There's no multifamily on this street, by the way. And, you know, they have 7 spaces down there. Look at the volume of their business. And when you were there today, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's your other city employee here, I'm sure, could tell you that's the time that the street is not loaded. Just about any other time it is. It starts about 6:30 in the morning, every morning over there. But I don't understand the count problem, and like I say, the people from Starbucks and Tom Ortiz being here, doesn't that speak for itself where the problem comes from?
Well, those are the same people that they just stated at the podium that they're willing to compromise for after 6 p.m.
Right.
And after 6 p.m. is when you have the problem, I assume, because when I drove it today, there was plenty of parking on the block, and I don't question you guys. After 6 p.m., Starbucks gets busy, absolutely, and there are people parking there. But these are the owners telling you straight out that after 6 p.m., we will not park there.
And another thing I'd like to point out is people with more than, say, 1 vehicle. They've got 2 or 3. A lot of these driveways are long enough you can get that many vehicles up there.
Mm-hmm.
But usually when that happens, the one that's backed in the furthest is the one that needs out.
Yeah, that's Murphy's Law. You're absolutely right.
So it's a lot easier to put 1 car on the street some of the time. This street, you can't. Most of the time, you can't do it. And the problem is obvious to me, and I think it should be to all of you, or they wouldn't even be here. The fact that Starbucks got a license without adequate parking is the problem.
That's something you need to take it to the Planning Commission. Unfortunately, it's out of our hands. So.
Well, it seemed like this would be easier.
Thank you. Thank you. I have one more speaker. I can't read the last name, but I believe the first name is Mardell.
Good evening. My name is Mardell Graves. I live at 521 Burchett. I have lived in that house, and there is an apartment adjacent to the house, and I also own a garage. Part of the property is a garage apartment that faces Han. I have lived there since the late 60s. I have owned the property since 1978. This problem has, well, you know the history, so I'm not going to go into it. But the problem with the parking is an ongoing problem that has really not been a problem since, it's only been a problem since Starbucks went in. I mean, to say that that is not the problem, and I'm not trying to blame them. I don't have anything against Starbucks, but the volume of business that particular location draws, there's just no place to park. What these people do, what their customers do, is to block our driveways. They painted a small portion of the curb red. I have a driveway, it isn't even a paved driveway. I'm not even really supposed to park in it, but where I'm at, I don't have a garage that I can park in. And I have the unit, 521A. Part of the reason I don't have that rented, and it's a hardship for me not to be able to rent that, is because there wouldn't be adequate parking for a tenant in that particular unit. This house was built in the early 1900s, long before their building was built. I wanted to address something about the trash cans, the whole issue. I mean, we not only have a difficult time parking in our driveway, we can hardly get into our driveways because the traffic going in both directions goes so fast, and we've requested speed bumps. Nothing has ever been done with that. We can't even have their streets cleaned because there's no, and other neighborhoods, I teach at Columbus Elementary School, which is just a few blocks away, and they have, one day a week you can't park on one side of the street because of street cleaning. We don't even have that. We don't even have, we can't even get our trash picked up always because people, customers, I assume, will move the trash cans on our trash can pickup day from the curb, where it's supposed to be, up onto the parkway so that they can park. And I have had to call, the city a number of times, would you please come and pick up my trash because someone moved it up onto the parkway so that it couldn't be picked up. And this is not something that just happens once in a while. I can hardly ever get into my driveway because of the fact that people will block. I mean, I have been late for work a number of times because I can't get out of my driveway because people will block the driveway. And I know these are Starbucks customers because I sometimes, if I have the time, I will call and say, there's a car, this is the license number, I'm going to call the police if it's not moved. But this has been a hardship for all of us, and a lot of the people on the street, I beg to differ with Mr. Ortiz, a lot of us have lived there for many, many years. And yes, the neighborhood is changing, and we would love to be able to, work out some kind of a compromise. But one of my questions is, if they don't enforce, like people park in this red zone, they not only park in the red zone, but they block our driveways completely. If they're not enforcing that, what does that say about enforcing a 1-hour parking limit?
Well, what does it say about enforcing preferential parking? It's the same thing. So enforcement is an issue. I agree with you. Believe me, I've dealt with that situation at my residence, so I absolutely understand what you're saying.
But this whole situation has been a hardship, not only for me, and I'm not trying to speak for the other people that are here, but it has been a hardship for a lot of people on this block, and it has definitely impacted the quality of our life.
Ask a quick question. When is your trash day?
It's Tuesday night. It's picked up on Wednesday morning.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just for the verification, because, again, there's another discrepancy we're finding. Miss, I'm sorry, I didn't, Miss Graves, she said that she can't rent 521A. So but when we're looking at the petition, she signed for both units, so that counted like 2 signatures. So that's another.
So they only have 16, actually. Then.
So they had 18 signatures.
So you should count total 22.
Actually, 17 over 22, probably the same ratio, but just so that we don't. 17 divided by 22 here. Yes.
So it's actually slower. It'll be.
No, it meets the.
Interesting.
So it's 17.
Well, it would depend on if 521A is a legal unit per assessor.
Yeah.
But it's vacant. Nobody lives there.
But then nobody lives there.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it works against the.
It works against it. It doesn't work for it. It's less.
But we should
actually.
technically have.
520A is a legal unit. It has a separate, I have to pay.
521A, you mean?
521A, the unit
Yes.
that is attached to the apartment.
So then, that's
The
fine.
separate meter, I pay additional, even though it's vacant.
Correct, but you signed for both.
That's what I was,
But the
told that I could do.
521A is vacant. You don't have a tenant in there now.
Not right at the moment.
Okay,
that
so it
means-
works against.
It works against them.
It works against.
That's where another discrepancy is, because the total count gets down to 17 over 23.
Correct.
It gets worse than 74%. We were trying to.
Right.
So
Legally, can you rent it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, she
It
can.
works against you then.
In other words, it works against them in the whole petition process because what she said about the fact that it's not rented, but she signed for both of them under both yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's
so
changing anything,
it
so
doesn't
it's a
change,
moot
it
point.
still
It doesn't
gets
change
worse.
anything. Thank you. Have you filled out a card?
We have a no for that.
Doesn't matter. Oh, please fill out a card and come to the podium.
Who has it?
They're right at the entrance.
They can
on
fill out the
table.
card after they
Okay,
speak,
you
so-
can bring the card afterwards, but we'll make sure you fill it out afterwards.
Just asking for the names enough.
That's so much fun.
Please. And come to the podium and state your name and...
All right. My name is Arad Gribian.
Okay.
I live at 536 Burchett since 1990 something. Anyway, I'm so confused. You
not
guys
alone.
have to believe it. You have to live there to believe it. Actually, it's not like somebody can imagine what's going on our streets. It's just it became to the point which you would think that, you know what, the hell with it. I'll just sell my house and go and just disappear because of these people. They're rich. You understand? They're making money by doing bad things to us. Would you guys accept, any one of you, if I make money by playing on your nerves, by playing with your nerves, by doing something bad to your family? I work 14 to 16 hours a day working for for Lowe's Home Improvement Center, okay? I'm doing flooring, and I work hard. You can look at my fingers if you want me to pull up my...
That's fine. We don't need to. That's fine. That's fine, please.
My back is damaged already. My wife works in a hospital, okay? She's a phlebotomist. My daughter works in a hospital. She's a nurse. My other daughter works in a school. She's a teacher. My other one is going to school. I have 6 cars because of what I do. And the boat is mine too, because I work hard. Because I work 14 to 16 hours a day. Every single day. Every single day. Okay? And you don't want to go back home after... By the way, Mr. Sahatian, the worst situation is on our street is after 4 5 p.m. It's not...
And I'm sure it
Not
is.
at morning
I don't
hours.
question it.
Because people work. Because we
Absolutely.
work. I work. My wife works. My 2 daughters work. My other daughter going to school. Okay, and everybody else. These guys are working. Rise up. Harvey, with your wife.
They're tired from
They
working.
work
They don't
17,
wanna
18
ride.
hours a day. Also, so we go home after 4, 5, 6 p.m. Sometimes I go back home 7 to 8 p.m. And I don't want to park somewhere else because I pay taxes. My wife pays taxes. My daughter pays taxes. We work very hard. Okay? Now, if they want to make money, let them make money. But they cannot make money, anybody, either me. I cannot make money by bothering you guys. It doesn't work. It just cannot work. The life became miserable in our street. You have to be there to see what's going on. These guys don't live there. They just make money there. And they want to make more money by bothering us? It won't work. It just won't work. Let them go. Let them go somewhere else. If they don't have parking spaces, they have to close their business. They have to have their own parking spaces. It's bad, I'm telling you. I'm telling you guys, it's bad. Looking at far away to what's going on to our street or by visiting 1 or 2 times, it won't work. It's just ongoing freaking problem. Ongoing problem. Not Monday, Sunday, Tuesday, 7 days a week. 7 days a week. Yet, people are driving like crazy because of Starbucks customers. Because of Starbucks customers. People are driving crazy. Crazy. I'm telling you, 40, 50 miles an hour. We need bumpers too. We have to have bumpers too. If you won't make it, I'm a contractor worker. I'll make by on my own. At least in front of my own home. I'll do that. I'll spend my money, I'll do that. Because they're trying to kill my daughters twice. It happens twice. And I called police officers. I don't want my daughter to be killed too. Because of Starbucks customers, our street became just miserable. I'm telling you. People are driving so fast, not just Starbucks customer, people are using our street to access to the freeway. We have to have bumpers too. And these guys are okay, but they have to have their own parking spaces. If they don't have enough parking spaces for their own business, let them go then. Let them go somewhere else.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to reach a compromise.
I'm telling you guys, you have to be there to see what's going on. It is bad. It is bad. Sometimes it comes to a point that you have to, you say, okay, the hell with it, just go.
We hear you.
Just because Starbucks is rich, we have to struggle? Why? I don't get it. Why? If you guys are here to support people, then support. Starbucks is rich. They can make money somewhere else. Let them go.
Correct. We're just repeating the same thing now. If you have anything else to add, if not, thank you for your time.
I appreciate it for your time.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I don't have any more cards, and with the consent of my colleagues and with the acceptance of Mr. King and Mr. Ortiz, staff will contact them. They will arrange a meeting and will be available to come. I'll be more than happy to come to the meeting, sit down to reach the compromise, and if my colleagues are available, they would like to be present, that will be great.
Mr. Chairman, we'll, again, based on all the information we got tonight, we'll double-check all the addresses, and we'll arrange a meeting. And, again, be honest with you, for that reason, we've had this problem. Every time we meet, we have a problem with whether it's the signature or the residence, whether it's a rental, whether it's not.
Right.
And that come up, I'm hoping that we'll get to the bottom of it and try to get this thing resolved for the next
And I would
commission.
like to add one thing. We shouldn't be playing the number games, and this goes to both parties. I mean, one signature here, one signature there, I won, you won. We really need to come to a compromise here. Okay, now having said that, we're done with this item. Thank you very much for coming. One other thing, have they applied for speed humps for Burchett? I'm not gonna start it, so.
Thanks, Ronnie.
But it is cut through traffic.
You want to sit here?
And for regarding the speed humps,
We can do it from here.
the city has not received an application for a speed hump. So please, before you build your own, put in an application. Might qualify.
We discussed about that matter.
Oh, I started something I shouldn't have.
open your mouth.
Okay, thank you.
Nobody responded.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Eric, let's move on. Item 5C. Can we please take the conversations outside?
Item 5C, report regarding the Glendale Beeline performance.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Transportation Parking Commission, wanted to present to you a Beeline operations performance report. What we're trying to do, we will be bringing to the Commission, either it's on an annual basis, biannual basis, or a quarterly basis, information on some of our operations, including the transit services that we operate. So it gives you an idea about how our Beeline system is performing. We will be bringing you further information on a line-by-line analysis that we're doing. There is a fair increase possibility that we will bring to the Commission for your recommendation to City Council. At the same time, on our parking operations, we're going to do the same thing so that as you're going to be making decisions, we felt it's important that you get an idea about the operation of the Beeline, how it's performing, what are the issues, what are the key productivity items that we look for in the operation of a transit system. And Ms. Engel is our transit manager. I'd like to introduce her to the Commission, and she will be making the presentation. And if you have any questions, I believe we can ask questions during the course of the presentation, or we can ask it at the end of the presentation. It's your desire, whichever you prefer.
Thank you. This is no way meant to be a comprehensive, overall, very detailed report, but just enough to kind of give you a feeling for where we are and what we're doing. This is the first performance report that we have put together in a number of years, so it's kind of a work in progress, but we didn't want to wait to have everything perfect before we brought it to you, and we will be developing the performance report as we go through each quarter and bring you updates each time. One of the things I thought was interesting to know or to share with you is kind of how Glendale Beeline fits into transportation in LA County. And there's a little bit of that information on page 2 where we talk about local transit systems and regional bus operators. So in Glendale specifically, we have the Glendale Beeline that serves as a local community circulator, and our regional counterpart would be Metro as the regional operator, kind of the long haul service that services our area. With LTSS, there's about 20 operators that are small city operators. Sometimes they serve multiple jurisdictions, but for the most part, they're local community circulators. Whereas the regional bus operators, or we call them BOS, Bus Operations Subcommittee, are the 16 larger regional operators that operate throughout the county, have been in existence back before 1964, and do a lot of that, what we call Tier 1 service delivery. They usually have a restricted service area, so they're the primary provider in that service area. Mr. Bogdanian serves as a member of the Technical Advisory Committee, that's TAC, which is a Metro committee that reports to the Board of Directors. So both on a local level and on a regional service level, we give feedback back into the county as far as county direction, policies, and procedures, both on a technical level and then with the LA County MTA overall. Councilmember Najarian is a member of the LAC MTA Board of Directors, and so we have a nice kind of relationship, both from the local level all the way up to the Metro Board. This is important because I wanted to show you kind of where we fit in, where Glendale fits into all the other local transit systems and also the regional operators. You'll see other than LA DOT, who runs, in this case, the community dash. You know, City of LA is very large, has lots of different communities, and LA DOT runs a dash program in those communities. So they're really huge. But other than LA DOT, Glendale's the largest local transit system in that LTSS group. And you don't need to remember all the other numbers, but you can see our size. Compared to those regional transit operators who are doing that long haul service, you'll see that Metro dominates the picture countywide. They operate about 70% of the service throughout the county. And then there's 3 other large operators, being Foothill Transit, Long Beach Transit, and Santa Monica's Big Blue Bus, which again carry large, they're very dense populations, large service areas. But if you take those top 4 out of the mix, you'll see where Glendale kind of fits in or is comparable with about the 2/3 of the operators. We kind of fit in the kind of between that mix. So Glendale is operating what we call Tier 2 and Tier 3 service. So we're doing some connections, multiple communities between La Cañada, LA County unincorporated areas of La Crescenta and Montrose, and then the Glendale Metro. So we're operating that Tier 2 service, but we're also offering the little interconnectedness within the city of Glendale itself. This is information kind of outside your performance report, but I wanted to give you the context of kind of where we fit in countywide. The next slides are all part of your performance report, starting on page 4, and I just pulled out a couple of highlights as we run through this really quickly to kind of put some things in perspective and maybe give some clarity. So anytime you have a question or you want to drill into this, please let me know. We look at subsidy per passenger as kind of what it costs to deliver that ride here in Glendale for the Beeline. Passengers pay 20 cents to ride, but it really costs us $2.92, or actually $3.12 to produce that trip, 20 cents of which is being paid by the passenger. And the rest of it is being paid by our local return funds in Prop A and Prop C. So there's a real value for the passenger at this point, but it's also a real cost to the city to provide that trip. Now, as we get into our line-by-line analysis and our recommendations that will come later on this year, you'll see if we increase our ridership, then that subsidy per passenger will reduce a little bit because we'll get more productivity per hour of service, and we'll walk through that on a couple other slides. In your report, we gave you some information on our unlinked passengers by route, and this is really not to be specific on the numbers, but to really give you an idea of where people are riding and which routes are the most popular. We are doing a lot of research right now into the actual unlinked passenger numbers that come out of our fare box, because we looked at the numbers and we think we're underreporting some of the numbers from the fare box because they're not being categorized per route. They're kind of floating in the system. So we're doing a validation process right now that will be included in part of your next quarter's performance report. Let's see. One of the productivity measures that we look at is our unlinked passengers per revenue hour. And you'll see our productivity is higher than most of the other local operators and a little bit below our regional operators. What really affects our number is the density of the areas that we're operating in. The regional operators are operating in large sections of Los Angeles or in very dense corridors, and so the passengers per hour, or the passengers available to them to ride the system, are much higher. So with our density in Glendale being less dense for the most part, between Glendale, La Crescenta, Montrose, and La Cañada Flint Ridge, our productivity is actually very high at 25 or 23 passengers per hour. So we're very competitive that way. Again, as we reduce our operating hours or we tighten up any unproductive hours, our passengers per hour will increase. And so that's where we're going to be looking at our line-by-line analysis to say, are there little tails of service we can cut? Are there hours where we're kind of running too long during the day? If we reduce some of those hours, our productivity will go up as part of that. So I'm sorry. One of the things I thought was important to share is that we have very reliable service. And a lot of times people will compare us to other service agencies. We are running either 99.8 or 99.9% of all of our service we've scheduled is a service that we're delivering. So you'll see on the chart, there's actually two colors of blue and two colors of the orange. Our service delivered is so close to the service we have scheduled that you're only seeing a very slight percentage of difference. And that'll show you for the last year and this year, year to date, we are consistently putting our service out on the street based on our passenger schedules. As far as I know, we're the only agency this close to being that far on time, so that's something to be very proud about. Sorry, this is really sensitive, so I keep going. On the on-time performance, we've also shown a lot of growth in our on-time performance or meeting our on-time performance standards. We have a high standard of 90%. And you'll see, as compared to other agencies or other service groups, our on-time performance far surpasses most of the other norms out there in our service area. We're shooting for a 90% on time, and in order to get there are a couple of things that we're doing. Hopefully a lot of our construction will kind of slow down. We have a couple of major street projects still kind of on the books. But we're also going to look at our line by line and look at if we need to adjust schedules so that the running time for our routes is as accurate as it can be, so that the buses are running according to the schedule in something that you can actually perform based on traffic conditions or changes in the environment that would affect the on-time delivery of the service. On maintenance quality, one of the things that we wanted to point out, because it's come up from time to time at this commission and at City Council, is the quality of our maintenance. Our maintenance services are excellent. We have 100% on-time preventative maintenance performance with our contractor. And this chart really shows how far and above we are in preventing mechanical failures while the buses are in service. Probably the average is about 6,800, 6,900 miles per month between actual mechanical breakdowns with a bus out on the road where it actually misses service. Our Glendale standard is 7,500. Again, we want to set the bar really high. We have been in the 9,000 miles per month average for the last year. This year, our buses are a year older. We've had some issues with our fuel source and having some power issues, both with the Beeline buses, but also with the trash haulers and the sweepers. So it's kind of across the fleet. We think we might have gotten a bad mix for a couple of months, and we're trying to verify that. But so we've had a kind of a big dip this year in the mileage between the road calls, but we're still on track right now at about 7,400 miles per month. And if we can increase that efficiency over the rest of the 6 months, we'll be on target. And probably if I can make sure this goes the right direction, one of the most important things that we look at in managing the Beeline system is what our safety record is. And we report safety issues to the Federal Transit Administration each year. And in addition to the reporting or the non-reporting of incidents, anything that's over $7,500 worth of damage gets automatically reported. We actually take those numbers and split it up into what is preventable and what is non-preventable. Because if we can identify the preventable issues that happen out there, then we can increase training or reaffirm driver skills to try and reduce that number. So you'll see that most of the incidents we have are non-preventable. And the collisions oftentimes are passenger cars trying to make a right-hand turn in front of a bus. And they clip the edge of the bus, the front corner of the bus. Our injuries typically are slip and fall injuries where someone wasn't holding on steady enough, or the buses are moving, or they're slipping as they're getting up and down out of their seats. And even our numbers on that are very low. So I guess I want to reaffirm that we have a very safe system, that most of the incidents that do happen when you see something out on the street aren't the cause of the driver not operating the bus properly, but are usually a collision incident or some sort of an incident involving another vehicle where a mirror is clipped, or someone scraping the front corner or the front bumper of the bus. And we report any incident that there is some sort of a connection between the bus and another item, whether it's a tree, a mirror, a pole, or another vehicle. So with that, if there's any questions, be happy to fill in any gaps in your performance report. And we will be back to you later this spring with both kind of a fair analysis with what we've been doing on our research, and also the line-by-line analysis that will kind of help us. We'll make some recommendations to fine-tune the Beeline system and try and be as productive as we can within the resources that we have available.
Just for curiosity, out of all the Beelines that we have, including the trash can trucks, how many of them are renewable energy, either gas or electric?
Well, 31 of the Beeline buses out of our fleet of 35 are CNG. We still have 4 diesel buses, which we have on a replacement program for 2012. The funding that came for them is in out-year grants. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I think we have 6 trash trucks currently and 2 sweepers that are CNG, and that fleet will increase as they're replaced over the next few years. So they'll be going totally CNG as we move ahead.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of brief questions. The first one is regarding the fare box recovery ratio, which is calculated here at 6.4%. And I wasn't sure how that number really related, so I did some research online looking at fare box recovery ratios for other transit agencies. And 6.4% is really, really low. In fact, it was probably one of the lowest ones I could find for a regional, a local bus system. And I noticed that part of the calculation for fare box recovery ratio for most of these carriers, not only is, the subsidy offset by fare box revenues, it's also offset by advertising revenues, which are kind of conspicuous by their absence here. So I was going to ask, does the Beeline do advertising? And if not, why not?
The Beeline does do advertising. We have a limited advertising program currently that brings in about $25,000 a year. Our current exterior design of our buses doesn't accommodate the advertising very well. The ads were placed on the buses without redoing the logos. So you'll see the ones with buses. You can't see Glendale Beeline on them anywhere. So as we're doing the new fleet, we have 9 buses that are on order currently. We're going to redo the graphics so that it can accommodate the side advertising panels and the back panels a little bit better. So we still have our identity of Glendale Beeline, but we can also hopefully increase some of that advertising revenue.
Okay, thanks. One of the other things I noticed had to do with the on-time performance, and let me see if I can find it. I was just curious if maybe you could say a few words about why Metro's target is so much lower than ours. Do they have that much more of a challenging situation to?
I think there's a challenge out in the transit world kind of overall in LA County. One of the difficulties for Metro is they have very long lines for the most part. So they're going through multiple jurisdictions and probably multiple construction areas as part of that. So if you're running a very long line, let's say is a 10-mile line, and ours are all very, very short. If you have something that goes wrong in the first couple miles of your route, that on-time performance issue continues throughout the whole length of the route. It's very difficult to catch up. God forbid that you have construction plus an accident plus something else happening along the route. Very often that route will never get back onto schedule, even with recovery time during the day. That's what I think hampers Metro probably the most. There are maintenance issues and breakdown issues, as far as losing service and different fleet issues with that. But I think it's the long haul service that has the problem when you're doing multiple service areas
and to address that, that's why they're implementing preemption, signal preemption. The red line is one example on Wilshire.
So the driver can hit a button.
It's not hit a button, no. It's done all via inductive loops, basically tied to the schedule. And you can actually see it on a screen where if a bus is behind schedule, the signals will preempt so they can catch up. We have it also on Ventura Boulevard.
And the last question I had related to there was a notation in one of these reports regarding deadhead hours, and I imagine that also involves when the buses have to go to the refueling station to get refueled. That's part of that. Is that going to be improved when we have our local refueling station and don't have to go to Burbank anymore?
We sure hope so.
Okay.
And hopefully having it local will do a couple things. We'll reduce the actual movement time between the yard and the fueling station. But we also won't have a lot of time where we're queued up in line just trying to get to the pumps. There's such a demand at the Burbank station between the airport and the public fueling that between the city fleets, which both Burbank and Glendale city fleets there, fuel there. And then LA Unified uses it as a backup station for their fueling facility. So there are some days there that the bus is waiting longer to get in line than it actually takes to fuel the bus.
And hopefully we won't get any more bad batches of CNG either.
Well, we don't know. We've asked our CNG provider if that could be an issue. We haven't been able to get a quality report from Southern California Gas Company. But it was interesting that we were having issues across the city CNG fleet, not just the Beeline buses. So the only thing common between the fleet is not mechanics or the types of vehicles, it's the fuel is the only thing that's common. So we suspect that there may have been something with the mix.
Okay, thank you.
I just have, it's not really a question, it's just a request when you're doing the line-by-line analysis. Now, I think it goes, we can take it for granted that those routes that have the higher ridership, like routes 3 and 4, the overall level of passenger subsidy is going to be lower than it will be on the other routes. So one of the things that I would like to take a look at is what is the gross amount of passenger subsidy, not just taking the average and applying it by the passengers, but really looking at the total, taking into account the utilization rates and what the subsidy is route by route.
We'll be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
The line by line will be very, very detailed. We'll
Okay.
give you kind of the inside look at what's really happening.
Good, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 6.
Item 6, Commission Staff Comments Updates.
I have a question. I was recently at a restaurant that opened up on Brand Boulevard. I'm not going to name the name of the business. Now, I gave my car for valet parking. They took my car and parked it on the residential neighborhood right next to it. Is that common? Is it allowed?
No, if it's a valet parking company, if they're using the city street to valet, we approve where they park the vehicle. So we know that in most cases, if they got a permit from us to do valet, that there's certain designated area that they have to park their vehicle. If they're parking on the residential street, then that's not allowed.
I'm not talking about the drop-off and pickup zone.
I know.
I mean,
It's
after
just
they
the
took my
actual-
car,
yeah.
they parked it, and if they're doing that, basically, I mean, they're profiting from city property, they should be paying taxes to the city.
They shouldn't be doing that.
They shouldn't
So
be
if we-
doing that.
If
That's
we
what-
find out who it is, then we will discuss it with them.
Okay, then I will give you the name offline. Commissioner Sulan.
Thank you. We got on the agenda today that we spoke about, the first agenda, which is the Columbus issue. I don't know if I could request this and to put this in agenda where we can recommend council regarding the apartments versus parking. What are the policies? What are the rules when someone rents? Can we, as a city, recommend? I mean, as a commission, can we recommend the city council where they can, when someone rents an apartment, the parking comes with it? Can we set some policies like that?
It's been a very complex issue because it's the same thing as we have many single-family homes that they have garages that they
Still
use their garages for storage or I don't know, maybe rental, and they use the on-street parking for that. That's something that it's been an ongoing issue, and the same thing with apartments where property owner rents apartments without parking, even though if they have off-street parking available to them. What I can do, I'll discuss this with the planning director, and because that's a planning issue as far as, putting any requirements on development, existing or new, that they have to, provide off-street parking for their tenants or required to do so as part of the rental agreement. And that goes also to the single-family units because we have that situation also. Many residents have off-street parking, garages, and it's fully loaded either with as a storage or it's converted to a room or something. So
Well, the rental
that
properties, people own houses, they have an option, but the rentals, they are forced to park on the street if they charge for parking. See, it's a big difference between
it's
a tenant
it's a
and-
very complex issue, and I can check with planning and community development and see, because they're dealing with that issue all the time. And to see if there is any direction or policies that are in the works, then I'll be happy to give you an update on that.
And then the next question I have is the gardens that the city is building next to the freeway on Monterey. Is a community garden being built? I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is once it's up and running, where are the folks going to park when they come to that place? I don't want this an issue later on. Residents complaining about no parking on weekends and so forth. Something to for us to look at it.
That actually did come up when the city council heard the matter, and just going on my memory, so I might not be exactly right, they did talk to the residents immediately adjacent to, I forget what the little street is that's just behind, where the wall is for the garden. There's a few houses back there. I know they did contact all the residents of those houses to discuss with them if it would be okay. And I think part of the justification for why they're doing it is because most of the volunteers that they signed up are supposed to live within walking distance of the garden.
I see.
Yeah, I know that's not the case for 100% of them, but at least some percentage of the and they do it on a first come first served basis. So they ask people in the immediate neighborhood first, and so I gather that most of the people that are going to be working there are either going to be walking or
locals
or are locals.
Okay. Then the third question I have is the parking meters, I believe, on Broadway, right in front of the post office, and on Orange, have been changed not to park until 10 p.m. Now, I'd like to know why until 10 p.m. when the businesses are closed. There's no business on Broadway right in front of the post office. Why is the requirement not to park until? It used to be until 6 p.m. They changed it to 10 p.m.
Well, that was part of the commission action that the commission took
On Broadway in front of the
entire downtown.
Yeah.
Entire downtown, so that we have a consistent parking 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. throughout the downtown. So you park on you go and park on Brand and some of the adjacent streets. It doesn't go till 10 p.m. and then you park on other streets that is at, it ends at 6 p.m. For consistency purposes, that's what we recommended to go till 10 p.m.
Okay, then it's my mistake, because I don't remember on Broadway and Orange. I do remember Brand, I do remember the Maryland and the parking structures, but on Broadway,
that was
the
part
wording
of the
was
entire region.
entire
downtown.
region. Are we happy with that? Can we?
I'm happy with it.
I'm happy with it.
I'm very happy with it.
Because on Broadway, there's no business. I mean, I don't know why the requirements we have to. I mean, if we can look at the back and maybe refine it.
If again, the goal was again to push people into the garages.
Well, the problem with the garage, I mean, it's not a problem. The concern I have with the garage is, I was told there's security, and I don't think there's a security. You go there at 9, 10, 11 p.m. So that's my concern. I don't know if the city can. I don't know if that's their.
I think the garages probably are more secure than the streets.
We have as part of our contract operation of the garages, we have roving patrol security that was provided by the contractor. Under the new contract, we're actually changing that to with actual security people these are trained security. Our current operators still provide security on with a electrical vehicle that goes throughout the garage. We are installing CCTV cameras in all the garages. Good. We have them in the Orange Street garage, but we are installing it at the Marketplace and the Exchange. So we're beefing up the security, so to speak. But the contractor will provide a security company will do that. As far as claims against any theft or activities, they're fairly low. I mean, it's not that we are having problems. There are more problems in other parking structures.
The Glendale Galleria is higher than any other structure.
Yes, but in our structures are fairly safe.
I'm just trying to be proactive. And my last question is, regarding the cameras that we have. I believe we have 4 of them throughout the city, one on Verdugo and Mountain. And
red light cameras.
Red light cameras, yes. And I do remember I mentioned this last time when we had a meeting, and I just want to share with you, I think the timing is an issue, and I tell you, it happened twice on 2 different occasions. The first time it happened when I was on Glendale facing north toward Verdugo, around 9:30 or 10 o'clock, I don't remember if it was Saturday night or Sunday night, when the light changes to green, when the first car goes in the middle, there's another car right behind it. This is one incident that happened, that as soon as the second car got in right behind the first car, the light turned from yellow to red. As a result, I saw the second car speeding because she was going very slow crossing the street, and the second car just speed away to, toward Ross Point.
The green cycle, I
Cycle
observed
and
that
yellow,
the
yeah.
green cycle was too short.
Very short.
My observation was westbound Mountain, going downhill at the signal, and probably we probably got a 7-second green time followed by the orange and red. And because it's downhill, some of the vehicles, they try to make it. I mean, they didn't get enforced by the camera, but they tried to make it through the intersection. It was only 7-second green time. But now you're saying northbound.
No, I was facing north. I saw. No.
Oh, you saw. It's the same direction.
Same direction.
Yeah, and my observation, Jano, was around 9:10 p.m.
Westbound Mountain coming down the hill.
Coming down the hill.
I'll double check the timing in terms of what's the minimum green. I don't have the timing chart, but what's
I've
the minimum?
noticed the same thing also at Los Feliz and Brand.
Yes.
The
And
east and
when-
westbound at Los Feliz. Sometimes it's there for like just a second. One car barely gets across.
Exactly.
Right. It's very dangerous what I saw.
And oddly enough, there was no loop activation for north or southbound. Verdugo was clear completely. It just twitched. Seemed like it was on recall.
I'll have it checked.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a couple too when you have a second.
Absolutely. Well, Commissioner Welch.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to raise a point. The lawyer actually made a pretty good point that we do actually have 3 findings to do when we do preferential parking. I note in the staff report it talks about the 25%, that they've met the 25%, but you never really quote the exact percentage of the numbers that they discovered of non-resident parking. And I think that would be important for us to take into consideration in our thinking of that. So that was just one of the things that I would like to ask, that future applications include that information.
We do have the percentage, so I'll make sure that percentage is included, because the minimum threshold is 25%. So by ordinance, if they meet that 25%, that means there is a problem. But whether it's 30% or 40%, the minimum is 25. They have to meet that minimum, regardless of what the maximum is. But we will provide that information.
Okay. And then my second one is, can you give us any update on what we know in terms of that LA incinerator project that they were going to be talking about somewhere near Duran and San Fernando, if we know anything further about LA's plans for that?
The city of Glendale, as part of the what we call looking at the existing at-grade crossings, we've been working with LADOT, Department of Transportation, Los Angeles, for the potential closure of Doran Street. In our discussions, City of LA has resisted the closure. When I say resisted, they're concerned that there are other projects in the future that may necessitate that we keep the Doran crossing open. And in our discussion with LA, that project has come up, that there's a potential that they would put in an incinerator at that location. For the record, City of Glendale has always opposed that we will not be in favor of such a thing. But nothing has gone beyond that. That's all we know, that there is discussion. City of LA has some plans or ideas. And there are other ideas. LA River Walk has a master plan in that area to turn that into a park area, park-like settings. So there's many different departments. City of Los Angeles have different plans for that area. We are in discussions with City of LA, but we have expressed, or city managers have expressed a concern. Director of Public Works has expressed a concern that we will not be in favor of such a project in that area. So if there's something like that, there's environmental review requirements, very strict environmental requirements for that type of a project. So we will keep the commission posted. That's all it is right now.
Good, thanks.
Commissioner Wiseman.
Okay, I don't know if anybody saw it, but because of the volume of letters from people, not quite understanding the issues regarding parking in Glendale, I took it upon myself to write a commentary for the Glendale News Press, which, if you ever want the world to beat a path to your door, that's what you need to do, because after that article was published, I started getting phone calls and emails and people coming up to me on the streets with all kinds of issues. So I have a list of about half a dozen things here that that I wanted to go through quickly, and I'm not expecting, necessarily an immediate response to any of these, but they're pretty much all as a result of, engaging in some outreach. The first couple of things I wanted to mention have to do with Caltrans issues, and I don't know if there's a specific person for liaison with Caltrans that we deal with, but I thought maybe this might be a way of bringing some of these issues to their attention. The first one has to do with the freeway-to-freeway metering lights on the transition from the northbound 2 to the westbound 210. There's evidently a problem early in the morning sometimes where the morning sun reflects off the lens of the stoplights there. So even if they are not on, it sometimes looks like they are on. A gentleman by the name of Robert Leff wrote a letter to the Crescenta Valley Sun saying that he came around that blind curve on the transition and there was a pickup truck stopped dead in the middle. There's 3 lanes on that transition. Pickup truck was stopped dead in the middle lane because he thought he had a red light, and it was just the morning sun reflecting off a lens. So it's a potentially very dangerous situation, and I thought, I don't know if there's necessarily anything they can do about it, maybe changing the angle or something.
There's options. We have that problem on coming down the mountain off the 2. We changed the lens of the signal heads because when the light shines right into the indication, even though it's a red light, but you see the red and the green at the same time because it just eliminates the green light. So there's a way to deal with that, but I will check with Caltrans there are different divisions in Caltrans handle these things. I can check into it.
Okay, and in fact, I think I do have the business card of the Caltrans engineer who's in charge of the freeway-to-freeway metering, so I can maybe email him. The second item that was also Caltrans related came to me from Cheryl Davis, who is a member of the Crescenta Valley Town Council. And I'm just going to read briefly this paragraph she wrote because it explains it probably better than I could. I work in Glendale. I have a suggestion that sounds easy, but probably isn't because it involves Caltrans. I was wondering if you could contact Caltrans to see about changing the metering on the Brand Avenue on-ramp for the eastbound 134 so it allows 2 cars per lane per green light. The backup on that on-ramp seriously affects Brand from Milford to Monterey in both directions and also causes problems for cars on Doran. I used to work at Brand and Doran, and getting through that intersection after 5 p.m. is very difficult. I've seen it gridlocked so that fire trucks trying to get through on Brand have difficulty. The people on Doran also have a really hard time. The company I work for moved north 3 blocks, and now we cannot turn left from Monterey onto Brand southbound after 5 p.m., all due to the backup on that on-ramp. Again, I don't know if this is something that Caltrans would consider
we have
feasible.
tried before, but we're actually trying right now to go to 2 vehicle per green. We're in discussions with their operation folks, so that takes a while for them to agree to because they have a number for the main line. They have certain thresholds they want to meet, so they have that in other on-ramps that we have in the city, 3 vehicle per, from the Monterey on 134. So we're working on that. We agree with that.
Yeah. The next issue that came up is actually something that had me a little bit worried because it was something I hadn't heard of before. And I don't have kids, so I had to ask other people's kids to get information on this subject. But if any of you know any high school students, either at Crescenta Valley or Glendale or Hoover High, you might want to ask them about this. In order to get a driver's license, you have to have a certain number of hours of behind-the-wheel training. Evidently, the high school kids these days, they say, oh, you don't need to do that. You just go to one of these outfits and you pay $100 and you get your certificate and you don't need to take any training. And evidently, this is a fairly widespread problem. It's something that a lot of the kids these days are engaging in. I know when I went to high school, we got behind the wheel of that big 4-door Plymouth Sport Fury, had to learn to drive it around our local streets. I guess they don't do that anymore. I've contacted Glendale Police Department regarding this issue, and they say they are aware of it, but it is a DMV issue. It also occurs to me that there's an element of crime. There's business fraud involved if companies are illegally selling these certificates without actually providing the training. So I don't know, again, if we have any liaison with DMV or if there's any way we can get something done about this, but given the issues we've been having with bad driving in Glendale, I think this is something we really need to look at. And so if there's anything that can be done about that vis-a-vis DMV,
If I may, on this issue, the schools don't have to be in Glendale. You can go to Los Angeles. So it's a very wide issue, and you're absolutely right. It exists.
You can also not go to class, the traffic school, if you get citations. And
Right. I mean,
pay for $50, $60, and I know that exists.
I usually go to the web traffic school.
I know,
not that I go to
but that
traffic school a
exists
lot.
too. So there's some kind of a...
Even
Okay.
online.
Yeah, that's this was, I won't talk about it. I've also, as a result of the community commentary, I've been contacted by several teachers at Hoover, Toll, and Keppel. And I know in some sense this is kind of an issue that's been discussed already, and there's going to be a lot happening in terms of traffic safety improvements at Hoover, Toll, Keppel. There are still several teachers of that school that would like to see Glenwood closed off. I know this is probably going to keep coming up over and over again, and you're going to be having to deal with it. And I know the feeling on the part of the traffic department is all closing Glenwood is going to do is displace the problem to other areas. What these teachers would actually like to see would be 3 completely separate drop-off zones, 1 per school. And again, I know there's probably no action likely to be happening on this, but I just wanted to put this out there so that you were aware there are people in the community still asking for this.
We have been working directly with all 3 schools at the same time, so I think it'd be best if the school teachers work through the school district, so that because we're dealing with the school district, trying to satisfy their pickup and drop-off needs. We've already identified it. Staff report that we presented to Commission and Council, and the joint meeting of Council and the Unified School District Board addressed most of these issues. We're still working with them, so I'll be happy to discuss it on an ongoing basis.
The next item I have is for those people that are interested in biking around Glendale, if you really want to take your life in your hands and get out there on your bicycle. Colin Bogart, who is our place grant coordinator, has set up a website for the Safe and Healthy Streets project. It is la-bike.org/Glendale. I know he's planning a bike ride for April 18th to promote Safe and Healthy Streets project. And he's setting up meetings to plan promotions for Bike to Work Day on May 14th. And also in June, there's going to be the annual LA River Bike Ride that people can participate in if they like. Okay, almost to the end. I've got a complaint from a resident on Frederick Avenue, which is up in the Crescenta Valley, just off of Foothill Boulevard. And again, it relates to an issue that we've heard of tonight, which is valet parking from a restaurant. In this case, I believe the restaurant is called Urartu, and I think they are also in operation as a banquet hall as well as a restaurant. And so I think typically on Friday and Saturday nights when they have banquets, I believe the complaint is that there is valet parking on the residential street. Now, I have no idea if they have permission for that or not. So that's why I brought it up for you.
I believe we've received that complaint, and we have contacted the restaurant to make sure that they get a permit. I don't think they have a permit. May not be the same restaurant, but if you have more details about it, if you could just email
It's actually the
me.
former Shakey's. I can send you the address, but it's at Foothill and Frederick between.
Okay. I think it's the same restaurant, but I will check tomorrow, and once I get your email, be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing, finally, parking meters. More feedback on parking meters than anything else. And rather than going into a long song and dance, I'm just going to mention 2 things that have come up the most often. One of them is it would be nice if there was an option for no receipt, like at a gas pump, since you don't have to put the receipt on your dashboard, even though a lot of people erroneously still think you do. It would, I think, help out with the litter problem of the receipts just kind of being tossed on the ground next to the parking meters. The other option that several people have asked me for is when are we going to be able to pay with our cell phone? I think that's another item folks are interested in. That was all I have. Thank you.
We are looking at the no receipt option right now. It's a programming issue. And there is some communication protocol we're trying to resolve. through the system to make sure that the cell phone payment will work. We do have the module. It is part of the multi-space meter program. So we want to make sure that before we put it out there that it's working completely and there's no problems with it, because if you try to pay for it with the phone and it didn't work, you may get a citation, and we want to make sure the system is tested before we do that. But it is available. We're working on it right now.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any comments from staff?
No, Mr. Chairman. No, nothing at this point.
All right. Item number 7.
Item 7, adjournment.
Who's moving it?
I'll move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.